Well, hello and welcome to episode number 26 of the Wonder of Stuff Vodcast, broadcast live on Google Hangouts on air every weekend. It's a Sunday night and it's a bank holiday here in the UK. As always, this is the place where you'll find news, information and commentary on science, engineering and technology from the past week and beyond, and anything else that interests us from inside our tiny little human brains. As always, my name is John Gardner, and to help me out on the journey to knowledge, let me introduce my colleague, Richard Smith. Normally it's Ross Davidson as well. Ross is going to join us later on this evening. Say hello, chap.
Hello, chap.
I think what I should explain is not only is it a bank holiday, so much merriment is going on generally, as happens in bank holidays in the UK, but also our the team that we three of us support, Newcastle United, has finally they've managed to stay in the Premier League after trying to do everything their utmost to get out of the Premier League.
We've won nothing. Celebrate.
Yes, we won nothing.
We've been the worst. Yes,
but we did come above Sunderland as it happened in the end. So Ross has been down watching the game, and he's rapidly coming up northwards in the country, trying to get into the to log on and join us. But what we'll do is, we'll start off with one of my topics first, and that way we can get everybody in, and everybody will get comfortable and join in as we go on. So we're going to start off with a vulnerability that has appeared over the last week, and I think it is I'm pretty sure that it is only the last week that it's come to the notice of everybody. I know at the Wonder of Stuff towards the end of last year, I think it was either the pre-Christmas edition or the Christmas edition, I did an annus horribilis for internet security, and we went through all of the things that were going on last year, and all of the vulnerabilities that appeared, and I think we did come to the conclusion that there would be some more appearing next year, because of the fact that now everybody is going all over the code that's around. And indeed, this one is probably the first big one of 2015. But this is a little bit different to all of the others, and I shall explain why. So last year, one of the vulnerabilities that appeared got all of the system administrators around the world to stop blocking the SSL protocol. So SSL v1, v2 had already been blocked, and now we were blocking v3, and so TLS was the only protocol we were using for encryption in web browsers, between web browsers and web servers. Now this particular error, because all of those ones before Christmas were errors in the implementation of a protocol, or some bug in coding that had caused an issue. But this is not particularly a vulnerability. This isn't a vulnerability in the actual implementation. This is a vulnerability in the protocol itself, and it's all America's fault. What happens is, when you've got a browser, we'll say a browser, but it can also be a secure connection with a secure email connection. But we'll say a browser and a web server. When you've got this browser web server connection that's made, keys are exchanged, and this goes on in the background, and you don't know about it, but it's happening. And this process is called the Diffie-Hellman key exchange, named after Diffie and Hellman, and another guy. There was 3 guys, but only 2 of them got recognized in the name.
Mr. Key.
Mr. Keen, Mr. Exchange. No. So anyway, it's the Diffie-Hellman. This protocol, or this type of key exchange was, I think it's like 1975. It's been around a long time. It was obviously when the internet came around, they used this as it was a proven method of doing it. And it's used in any SSL communication, any TLS communication, any IPsec communication, anything with an SSH. It's all the key exchange is mostly a Diffie-Hellman. There's a Diffie-Hellman and there's the RSA, but the Diffie-Hellman is probably the most popular. Now the problem is, and the reason why it's all America's fault, is this issue here is because America was all paranoid back in the 90s, and they required that anything that was made for export had to have a lower level of encryption. So it was like a 512-bit encryption for export. Now, subsequently, they did away with this, but it's that paranoia which is the reason why we're having this problem now, because all of the vendors of the security equipment and security software built this 512-bit export encryption into their software and didn't take it out. For backwards compatibility, they've left it in. Now, I will show you via the diagram. It's another one of my little famous diagrams. So, you've got browser, you've got server. Even though the server, I was just looking at the server, looks like a locker from a changing room.
Yeah.
But you've got one of those, and you make the connection. Now, this vulnerability allows a man-in-the-middle attack, and the man-in-the-middle attack, for those who don't know, is any way that something can get intercepted and change what is actually happening. So in this case, the man-in-the-middle attack here can influence and downgrade the level of encryption that's going back down to the 512-bit. So if they can intercept and negotiate a downward connection, they can use this export grade cryptography, this 512-bit, and that allows any attacker to read and modify any data passed over this connection here. We'll just flip back over there. I think that's all we need to see on that one. Now, this particular attack affects any server that supports what they call a DHE export cipher. And it basically affects all modern web browsers. They've done some calculations, and when I say they, it's a group of security analysts have got together and said, this is a real issue, and they've done some calculations, and they reckon it's about 8.5% of the top 1 million domains are initially vulnerable to this. So what is the threat? Well, the threat is that anything with HTTPS in front of it, any SSH connection, so if you're using PuTTY or something like that to connect to a Linux box or a Unix box, any VPN servers that use things like IPsec or SSL in some cases, they all use the same prime number for a Diffie-Hellman key exchange. Now, somebody in the past believed that this method was safe, but it's now proven not to be safe, and the reason why is because the first step on this key exchange is dependent only on this prime number, and this this prime number is on all of these pieces of software. After this first step of exchange, an attacker can get in here and then quickly break into individual connections. So what you can do is you can downgrade connections, like I said, on about 80% of all TLS servers, and they reckon, again, more calculations, they reckon that if a team can break a 768-bit prime number, and that any nation state with nefarious means can break a 1024-bit prime number. So we have a little bit of an issue with this one, and the only reason I'm bringing it up is normally I wouldn't bring it up if it was just at the server side, because unless you're a sysadmin you wouldn't be bothered about this, but this does affect the browser level as well. So if you're a sysadmin, you need to disable the cipher anything less than 2048 bits on any web server or any mail server that's got an SSL connection. If you use SSH, you need to update your PuTTY client as well as the Open SSH server on the Linux or the Unix box. But you also need to upgrade your browser, and they've produced a website, which I'll go to now, and I'll show you where it is. Yeah. So the website is called www. It's not called www anything. It's called https://weekdh.org, and I'll show you that now. And when you go to this website, it will actually do a test on your browser, and you'll get this little red bar saying that you need to upgrade your browser. And the problem is that I can't upgrade my browser because I'm on the latest version of all of my browsers. So obviously the vendors haven't got to the stage where they're actually released the issues, the fixes for this issue. So what do you think of that, Richard?
I've got a couple of questions for you.
Fire away, and I'll not be able to answer them.
So once you're in a man in the middle position, why do you then need to weaken the cipher security on the connection? Are you not already in a position to read from the inside at that point?
I think it's easier if you can down to renegotiate down to a 512 bit. That anything else that you need to do from then on is easier to get, because you like one person could probably break that. You don't need a team or a nation state.
Right.
You know, I think that's the crux of it here. It's easier because it's much reduced in terms of the amount, the bit encryption. That's the main thing.
You know, when you mentioned nation states, and
yeah,
what's the reason that they're better at breaking these things? Is it expertise? Or is it
I think it's just you've just got a lot of brain power on it.
All right.
I think when it said nation state, I think it's using it more as a description of the amount of brain power or the amount of actual time effort to do it. So they were doing like this. I think the way they said it was like there's a single person, there's an academic team on it, can do the 768. If you need any more, you'll need a country of horrible people trying to break in.
I think it's quite unusual. It's not unusual to have an attack that makes old stuff vulnerable, but it's one of the rare ones that I've heard anyway, where all browsers up to the current one are going to be vulnerable.
Well, I think the browser thing is that the reason why you have to update your browser is because purely for the point of view that if a sysadmin stops the weaker ciphers, then if you're going in on this with your browser, you will also get, it might renegotiate down, and therefore you won't be able to get to the site. I think that's in this particular instance that's the thing that they were at for this thing. So I don't think your browser wouldn't stop working, but they need to be in sync with what they're doing at the server end.
Right.
And if they do make all the changes from the sysadmin level, hello Ross. If you do make all those changes, Ross is here. If you do make all the changes at the server level, the chances are that your browsers won't be able to connect anymore.
Right.
To the sites or to the mail connection or whatever. So that's it. We've done the first one, Ross.
Hello. Sorry, I'm a bit late.
Yeah,
I'll give you a match.
I think you might want to put your
you might want your headphones on there, Ross. Okay, just one moment.
Should we do a topic of alcohol intoxication now?
Yeah, no. So that is basically, it's a warning for everybody just to be on the guard. And as soon as you get your browsers, the vendors get the browsers out, and all the sysadmins get to work. We need to make sure that you just update everything. I don't think there's been anybody exploited this at the moment, not knowingly anyway. but we need to hop on that and keep on top of that. So I'm gonna move on to Richard's topic now, and we're going from technology to biology, and we're going to the great apes, and we're going to talk about. I think you're going to talk about social dynamics in the whole of the apes world.
Yeah, and aggression in particular. The news this week is that a gorilla that lives in Melbourne Zoo, a female 33-year-old gorilla, has been attacked and killed by a 13-year-old, and it's made the news because it's a rare occurrence in gorillas for this sort of thing to happen. Obviously, this is in captivity as well.
So this is a rare occurrence generally, not just in captivity.
I think I don't think we know how often it happens in the wild. Certainly, there's some debate already going on about is this as a result of being in captivity. You know, it's well known with orcas, for instance, that being in captivity makes them into aggressive animals that in the wild they're not aggressive animals. Gorillas, I'm not sure, but I think it's just good husbandry that keepers, if an aggressive male emerges, it's not fitting the dynamic, they'll move them around. So normally it gets picked up on. I think in this case there was, the zoo is saying there was sort of no outward clues that this was going to happen. It's kind of caught them by complete surprise. So they were saying, aggression, he was a silverback, aggression does happen, but it's kind of caught us by surprise. But go on.
It's interesting what you say, though. I mean, that they've obviously all animals that are in captivity do show signs of boredom, of stress, of as any sentient being would do if you're stuck in the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a wild beast of any description, your natural habitat is to roam or to walk, to swim, whatever.
I think if you're a smart, intelligent animal, especially with one with a wide, that has a wide range naturally in the wild, it's more difficult to keep animals like that content. So as if you're the opposite of that, then maybe it's a little bit easier. Certain animals don't seem to do badly, and in fact, obviously many have greater life expectancies in captivity than they would in the wild because they're not being predated, they're not dying of disease, they're not being killed by peers as often, stuff like that. The exception seems to be orcas. They do very well in the wild and have quite high life expectancies, but they do poorly in captivity, and no one quite knows why. It's obviously something about captivity inherently that doesn't suit them.
So I guess the question that I was going to ask, I had a big long preamble but never got to the actual point there, was you've touched on it there. Is it because they've got psychological issues with being captive that caused this? I mean, directly or indirectly, or is it
Well, they've looked at it. They've looked at wild apes as well to see if aggression exists there, and even that's controversial because the stuff that's been on Attenborough and Jane Goodall has brought the attention. Critics of that will say, well, that's to do with human intervention though, because Goodall studied them by giving them bananas and making them compete for the bananas, and that itself could have caused aggression that otherwise wouldn't have been there. So it is very, very difficult to observe animals without the observer becoming part of the experiment. So it's just difficult to do that. But on the subject of aggression, one story I heard a couple of years ago, which is from back in the 70s and late 70s, early 80s, was of some biologists, Sapolsky and Scher. They Share as in S-H-A-R-E, wasn't Share.
She knows nothing about that, but she can wear scantily clad clothes and sit on a gun.
Yeah. They followed a troop of wild baboons in Kenya over a 20-year period, so it was a long study. They were following several troops, but this troop in particular, they were nicknamed the garbage dump troop because they got a lot of their food from a tourist lodge. There was a pit where they put all the rubbish. So they were getting their food from there. And basically, what used to happen was the alpha males of the group, or the aggressive males of the group, restricted access to the food as they do normally, so that only the most aggressive males got the lion's share of the food, and then beta males, some males didn't get any at all, the females didn't get any at all. But the meat was spoiled, so some of the meat that was in with it was spoiled, and it unfortunately poisoned a lot of the baboons, and all of the most alpha males died. Then they were replaced by the next most aggressive males who became alpha. They then died. So over a 3-year period with these poisonings happening, all of the aggressive, high testosterone males were purged from the group. Females ended up running the group, and
very efficiently.
the aggression went right down, and social cohesion and stuff went up. So you had like I say, these two scientists were observing number of troops at the number of different troops, but in this particular troop, they were finding that percentage time of grooming went up dramatically. That used to sit closer together, and then they followed that up to see if this wasn't just anecdotal. They followed it up with hormone samples, found out that the lowest status males then were much less stressed than they would be normally, and the underlings were much less stressed than they would be normally. Obviously, not the fear of confrontation wasn't happening all the time, so they were much less anxious.
Which is interesting analogy you can make to people in a management situation who manage with a rod of iron.
Yes, and you will, if you Google this this subject, that's exactly what will come up, is lessons learned for the workplace on those along those lines. Yeah, taking some lessons. But what was interesting was a kind of culture emerged. So what happens with baboons, as with most social animals, is that the alphas from other colonies then come in and try and take over that troop. So strong alphas who are not strong enough to be alpha number one, who got booted out of another troop, would come into this troop and try and take over. And basically the troop with the less aggression tendencies in it basically said, no, we don't, not in these words, but no, we don't do things like that here, and condemned that behaviour. And even once it was back to 50-50 males and females again, they've maintained that structure of less aggression. Some of the aggression has crept back in, but nowhere near to the degree of other colonies, so it's kind of become the status quo.
So they've actually changed their culture. They've changed their environment, they've changed their culture, and they've decided that they quite like it, this calm.
Yeah, basically works better for them.
I think it works better for humans as well, to be honest.
But, but Goodall observed it as well. She famously observed it in '74. There was a gang of male chimpanzees that invaded neighbour's territory and killed an isolated male. But what was interesting was about it that the male wasn't a stranger. They'd been part of a supergroup and split into two subgroups, and the male was basically part of that group that they saw as a threat. So it was cited as warfare in the apes is seen as well as warfare in the humans. So but bonobos, which is the next closest thing after chimpanzees, they split from chimps a million years ago.
So in the sort of how the amount of separation from humans, where are they?
So chimps, I think, is 4 million from us, is it? Something like that. And bonobos is 1 million from chimps, so they're pretty close to chimps, and not that far removed from us in the scheme of evolution. So yeah, they're pretty closely related to us, but they're completely non-aggressive. They're all herbivores. They're non-aggressive in that it's a female-centered society. So in bonobo society, you see friendships made for life, alliances, and much less aggression. So it's not common across all apes, this thing, but certainly what's happened here with the gorillas. Although it is an isolated incident, and I'm sure people are dying of domestic violence somewhere in the world in human society right now. So it's not, it's not that the animals are any more animal really, but interesting that these things are not the province of just humans. It happens in ape societies as well.
In fact, you could almost postulate that animals have the right to be more animalistic anyway, and therefore that they have the right. Not right is a strange word. I haven't even. That's not even the right word. But you would expect them to if anybody was going to, if a male was going to kill a female, you would expect it to be more in their world, rather than in humans. But it's probably completely different. Yeah. It's probably the exact opposite.
Yeah. I suppose in most people's minds, sort of becoming more civilized is synonymous with, treating each other more fairly and not attacking people because you can and blah 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 blah. But of course, you've seen this in that troop of baboons. You've seen this behaviour where when the aggressive males disappear, it's not an inherent thing that's part of baboons. It's part of those baboons. If it happens to be run by strong alphas, which it tends to be, just because of that, they're more competitive. But it isn't necessarily better. The troop functioned as well, if not better, without that influence. But I think, testosterone is one of those things where it's useful for evolution, maybe not so useful for creating societies, but yet evolution is about the individual a lot of the time, not the society. So it's kind of this arms race, isn't it?
It is, and I think the apes, I think will be more. It's because of their close proximity to humans is what I'm trying to say in a rambling old way. Because of close proximity to humans, any experiments, any research, any analysis of their environment and how they behave as a family unit is always, I think, more interesting from a human perspective.
Yeah.
And naturally we will try and make sort of comparisons with us, and it's like, it seems to be far easier to make that comparison, to make that leap, to make that connection.
Yeah.
So for stories like this is always interesting. And
I mean, probably as well, just objectively, well, it's hard to be objective, but I guess they do, regardless of humans. If humans didn't exist and you're observing Earth's creatures as an alien, after us, they do have the most complex societies and things. So they are, as some objective measure of complexity and interest, they are chimpanzees and apes and orcas and dolphins too, are the next most sort of complex animals with interesting sort of interplay in societies and things like that. Culture, observing culture. Not every animal has culture, of course.
I think I always recall when we're talking about apes and stuff. I always in my mind I always picture the now famous incident where David Attenborough is sitting in front of I think it was a silverback, wasn't it? And how the whole of the family got round and sort of like almost accepted. Well, they did. He accepted him into the family, and that was the first time it had ever been on television. I think it was the original Life on Earth back in 1979.
Yeah.
When that was and to see that for the first time, and it was as amazing from our perspective sitting at home as it was for him, because obviously he put himself in a potentially huge dangerous situation. It could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And that's when it's always in there, because I remember, because I was young, I would have been about 8 or 9 when I saw that first time, and it did left a huge sort of image, which still today it's one of the great images. And
well, Attenborough's done a lot for that, and Goodall and Fossey likewise have those issues to our attention.
Yeah.
But zoos, just going back to the zoo thing, I don't know. I'm assuming. I mean, it's just new news. I don't know if it's just happened in the last day or two. Somebody will do some analysis on Slate or The Guardian or something like that of an opinion piece of what's gone wrong. So I might do a follow up on that. But But in terms of zoos, whatever you feel about them, these gorillas are there as a breeding program. They're not there. Well, I'm sure that they help in the public interest and zoos' profits as well. I'm not saying that it's probably all great, but certainly they're there as a breeding program to try and re-establish numbers rather than just as an attraction. These are the western lowland gorillas, which are low numbers because of
fairly endangered, aren't they? I seem to recall reading an article about that a few years ago.
So they're the ones with the Latin name gorilla. So you've got gorilla, which is the genus at the top level, and then within that you've got western gorillas and eastern gorillas. And the western gorillas are gorilla, and then within that you've got the cross river gorilla and the western lowland gorilla. So then they're called gorilla. So they've got all three gorillas. They're the only one that comes to mind that's got that, but there might be others.
There's no confusing what it actually is.
Yeah, you can't forget that Latin name, can you?
So, have you got anything to say on this, Ross?
No.
Right, okay. Do you have a topic for this evening? Okay, right. I was just
I could do football.
Yeah, it doesn't really fit into our remit generally.
I could do the sort of like the crowd mentality of going to a match.
Football match?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. I do apologise.
Could you actually though?
Yeah, I mean,
not really. No.
The potential is there, but I don't think it would be very.
No,
Right. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Right. Okay. So we're on for good time now. So what I'm going to do is, because it's a bank holiday, because you're happy, Ross, I'm going to do some conspiracy theorist stuff. Right. Okay. Yay! We all love it here.
I love conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking to Richard before we came on, and I have to say, this particular set of conspiracy theories passed me by completely. You may know about this, Ross, but I didn't. And I was just whizzing through for stuff for this week's episode, and I found an online a web article on this new anomalous thing that's on that the Mars rover has picked up in one of its shots, and me, because I kind of tried to keep conspiracy theorists out to one side, because, well, they're like your favorite the favorite drunk uncle, aren't they? It's good to point and laugh at them now and again, or favorite drunk friend who's sitting there. Anyway, but I saw this article and I read it and I thought, oh, interesting. This is a new tack on the conspiracy theories, where they're saying that the Mars rover has picked up this image, and this image is it's absolutely 100% bona fide, and which it is. It's a definite NASA image, and this is definite proof that there is or has been or is life on Mars, to quote a popular television program and a song by David Bowie. So. Had a look at it and thought, yes, haha, chuckle. And then I did some more looking around, and this is not the first one. There's hundreds of these things that they've been picking up and going, that's one of these, and that's one of these, and that's one of these. So I thought I'd start before I go into them and show you the ones that I've found this week. And like I say, they've probably been there for many years, well, since the Mars rover went up there and started sending photographs back, but I've just not seen them before. The very first one that came to our attention, that somebody said, oh look, there's definite human life up there, or some sentient being life up there, was back in the 70s, when the Viking the landers and the Viking surveyors went up and took a picture of the face on Mars, which is the Cydonia face now. Let me see if I can just quickly, I haven't got this one prepared, but let me just see if I can just, by the power of Google, show you if anybody hasn't seen this, and I can't see how anybody hasn't seen this. Here you go. So let me just share this out. So this is the Cydonia face, and this was taken by the I think it was Viking 1. They were doing a survey for Viking 2, and they found this little. Well, obviously it's a fake.
You would get fright when you saw that for the first time.
Well, you would, because you look at it and you think, yeah, that's a face. That's a face looking out directly into the camera. However, and this right throughout the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, this was, we were, there was hundreds of thousands of people convinced that there was a face up there, and therefore there was life on Mars. And it wasn't until like 2001 where NASA managed to go back up there, and this is what it actually is with a high resolution camera. All of the facial features were just shadows. So you can see, if you cut down that way, that's what you were seeing, and you can see the little eyes, and this is
it
just
would have been a little bit more disturbing if there were actually geological artifacts creating the face. That would have been less likely to occur, wouldn't it?
Yes, it's true. So that was the first one, and until the Mars rover went up there, that was the only thing that anybody could point at being some other thing up there and some other sentient being. Now, this is where I came into. I'll just stop sharing that for a minute and find all the things. This is where I came into these things from this week. This is my investigation of this week. Investigative. Now, the first one. Well, I'm just going to show it and see if you can see what this is supposed to be and what everybody's picked up on. Now, there's rocks around here, and then up here, this, to everybody is saying that this looks like a femur bone. So you've got the bit where it goes into your joint up here, and the actual bone comes down here. And I have to say, the fact that it's a different colour to the grey rocks around here, possible. It's possible, I guess. NASA have actually explicitly come out and said, well, it's just a rock. It's a rock. It looks vaguely like a bone.
There is rocks above it that are that colour, and there is one to the left and down that is that colour.
Yeah, there is, and it's the, and bearing in mind the colour is not the colour. These are all being colour corrected artificially. All of the Mars photographs have all been colour corrected artificially. So what you see is not what's actually there if you were standing on the surface. So this is the first one that when I went back and I thought, yeah, well, okay, yeah. That's hot. It's not entirely conclusive. So let me just.
The thing is, right? It's this whole thing of what's it called? Paraphilia, or whatever it's called, where like humans are wired to see things, like see faces.
Yes.
You're wired to see faces and things, and you see faces in all sorts of daily life. And the face on Mars was one of these things where it's like, oh my god, it's a face.
Yeah.
It's obviously a face, but it's not really. It's just, it looks like a face. And you see these things all the time. You can see them on Earth. If you take photos of like random places in America or whatever, you'll see faces. You will see them.
We had one when I was a kid. There was we had one of those passive lights that go on in the garden, and when that was on, my mum was looking out and got a real fright that there was someone standing in the garden, and she shouted at my dad to come quickly. And basically, long story short, all four of us could see this woman standing there, looking into the house, like really creepy woman, but she wasn't really there. It was a fir tree, and it was the way that the shadows were landing on it. But all four of us could see not only a person, but the same person, like an old woman, with a creepy, like long, big nose, and we could all see the same thing which wasn't there. and it's exactly as you say that we've evolved to quickly pick out faces in the dense undergrowth and in a variety of environments. So,
I think when that happens to me the most often is if I wake up and I've just come out of a deep sleep, so I've been in just coming out of rapid eye movement and I'm not quite awake, and I'll see a shadow in the corner of the room. My brain is telling me that is a person standing there.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and I'm trying desperately, bit of my brain is trying to go, process, what's that, process. And the other bit's being, no, it's a person. It's obviously a person. And it's only until you do fully come out of that, then you go, well, no, it's a shadow and it's my dressing gown hanging on the door.
Yeah.
And how could I be so stupid?
But even if you're wide awake and you go into a dimly lit room, your brain jumps to that first and goes, oh, and that's why you get a fright, or person. And then you have like 2 seconds to process it, and you're like, no, not a person. Coat hanging on the back of a door.
Yeah.
But because the costs of being wrong could be fatal to you, evolution says it's always best to assume that's a threat in the person.
It's the fight or flight thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Think but be ready and reacting to the threat, and then if it's not a threat, you can at least cancel the reaction. Whereas if you're too slow to pick up the threat, it's too late. You've got to spear through your skull before you've reacted. That's the reason, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I've got another one to show you while I'm here. So this one is somebody's handily put a little red ring round of what they think is a lizard in the top corner. Well, I can see it. You can see what it is. They've got a little tail, and yeah. Well, hang on. I've got a better view of this. Hang on. Let me just show you this. So this is what is actually on the photograph, and they've done some sort of basic image enhancement.
Yeah, I see.
So you see that the head is looking. The head is looking around.
But the thing is, right? What I don't get.
Or an iguana or something like that.
I get why it looks like an iguana, right? But then, the story that you have to create to make that possible is so outlandish and ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Like, okay, so it's an iguana. So what's the iguana eating then? I mean, like, you know what I mean? You've got to. So there's a whole system of life.
Well, to be fair to our friends, the conspiracy theorists, I don't think they're thinking it's a live iguana. I think it's some sort of petrified iguana. It was looking back as something happened, and it's like stuck in this.
Well, I'd be petrified if I was on Mars.
But I've got another one, which is the one that I actually wanted to show you. This is the one. This is how I got onto all this and spent like 2 hours this morning going, no way. So the first one. So this is the one. This is the actual image from the NASA image library for this one. It's PIA 10216. So as you can see, there you go. There's your lunar rover in the bottom right hand corner, and there's just Mars scape. So if I go in, now I know, because I spent ages trying to find the damn thing on here. I know where it is, but if you go in to any level, except I can't go into this level. Why can't I go into this level? Oh, have I got to open it up in a browser? Hang on. I think that's what I have to do. Open with Chrome. If I've put it over in Chrome, right. Can I double click on? Ah, yes, there you go. So, I know, because I've tried this, that way along the bottom edge here, down in this corner, you see this little guy down here?
It's a guy sitting with his back to you, looking out.
It's a guy sitting, pointing. Okay. Now, actually,
of course it is. Of course it is.
Well, hang on. Let me just find it. This is the guy. You see?
Yeah.
And there he is. And
conclusive proof.
It looks like he's got his legs crossed. Actually, it might be a woman, because there might be a bit of a breast there.
But the thing is, right? If let's say it was even more detailed, like let's say it was as detailed as the picture of Ross that's broadcasting now. still it remains that the explanation that you'd need to make that true is just like so ridiculous. So surely the conclusion you should jump to is, well, obviously this is some sort of optical illusion, or obviously this is some sort of bias that we all have and share. And is that not the logical, rather than saying, oh, well, this must be a huge conspiracy and there must be life, life on Mars, there's been someone sitting on Mars.
But, well, I mean, you're trying to find logic in people who have no logic, right? So, if you start on that premise, then all bets are off.
I'm sure that. Well, you say, look, they don't have logic. They do have logic. They just start with a bad premise, don't they?
They do, yeah. But they
deduce that conclusion from just a terrible starting premise.
But I was thinking while I was doing this, if you take the people who the exact people who when we discovered the the moon anomalies a few episodes ago, and these are the people who don't believe we're even in space. But yet, there's another one. And here's another one, and this is how this came about. The latest one.
I've got more sympathy for those ones because, when you talk about some of the quantum strangeness and stuff like that, it's stranger than fiction, and so I can get how they've got it. But it's when it's something so provincial as a man sitting on a cliff, or when it's, what I mean, when it's so provincial that it's that level of specific claim, they're more ridiculous to me than one where, we could all be living in custard. Well, that at least, okay, could be true, we just can't prove it at this point. The man sitting on a ledge is relatively easy to knock that one out of the water, isn't it?
It's true, but this is the last one. This is the latest one that everybody's going, oh, look, it's definite proof. And this is the one that confuses me with this conspiracy theorists. Because they're saying this is a snapshot from a list of shots from a reel, well, a digital reel, as it were. And this is the shadow of the lunar rover with a guy fixing it.
Okay. NASA just overlooked the fact that they left the guy in the shop when they released the photograph.
Well, yes, but you see, and this is the issue. This is the issue because these conspiracy theorists aren't the same conspiracy theorists who are saying we're not even in space. These conspiracy theorists saying, yes, we are in space. This is on Mars, but this is a guy on Mars who's fixing it because he's a nice bloke. He's come on and gone, oh, you know what you want here, mate? You want this sprocket that's on the top of this gimbal thing. You need that fixed. So the
pictures are still being taken automated, though.
Well, yeah, of course they are, of course, because right. Like you were saying, they come up from the premise is wrong, what the starting point is wrong. But I found this shot. This is not the one that was published on all the websites of conspiracy theorists, because the one on the website is this completely out of context. So I found the actual shot in going through the image archive of NASA. And there's only like 2 seconds between the previous shot where there isn't that shadow and another 2 seconds after it where there's another shot which there isn't that shadow.
Do you see him walking away?
You don't see him walking away, but what you do see is the camera turning around. So the camera's in a different position, which for me was like, well, obviously if you're rotating and taking shots every 2 seconds, the shadows will be different. Because the whole thing is going to be casting a different shadow.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you that bit. They just say, "Oh, look, there you go, obvious." Well, it's like, well, it's not, because if you see it in context, that is.
But it's confirmation bias, isn't it? You start with, oh well, I need to believe that this is a person. So how do I work back from that and dismiss all the evidence that doesn't suit us and keep all the evidence that supports what I've decided, basically.
Absolutely. So, I just thought,
Wonder of Stuff logo. That could be a pair of boobs. I mean, that's what my conspiracy theory is. Could that be a pair of boobs there? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you've been drinking as well?
No, my mind goes to boobs.
You know what? Here's the interesting thing. So I thought
pareidolia or pareidolia, whatever.
Would you still know that word if you weren't drunk, Ross?
No, but it's this human thing of seeing things in stuff, and it's a built-in thing. It's a built-in thing with humans.
Not just
shapes.
humans, but any artifacts that we relate to,
Yeah,
or is it
exactly.
just specifically humans?
Well, obviously we have no idea what other animals see, but humans, like, you see shapes and stuff. You see faces. You see boobs. Obviously, Richard. You just see that and stuff.
Bees see human faces. There's been studies that have shown that bees can recognise individual humans. They've done a study on that. So it
Well, there you are. It's a built-in thing. It's a built-in thing.
But also that we haven't just evolved to recognise human faces. The faces have evolved to be recognisable as well. Do you know that?
Really?
The reason that we look different, the whole thing about animals all look the same. Part of that's just that you're not as nuanced at telling differences between animals as you are telling differences between other people, of course. But also, animals are more alike. Their faces are more alike than humans, because we have evolved, because we're social animals, to have different faces to help us recognise each other. So it's on purpose that there's some variation in the face.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? So if that wasn't useful in terms of evolution, we would look more alike than we do. But the reason that we look so different is for that. Yeah.
So that's why I put those in tonight, and I thought it would be a good bank holiday because everybody's a little bit more relaxed. Some are more relaxed than others this evening. I thought I'd put that in. We get them out of the way now. There's no more conspiracies. We've done Moon. We've done Mars. I don't think there's anything else, is there? Oh, there is the other one that's the Nazis have got a base in Antarctica.
All right.
But that's for another time.
I think pseudoscience is interesting. I think we can do that. I just don't think conspiracy theories.
You've not seen that film? The film about the Nazis on the...
Which film?
The
Nazis on the Moon.
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Well, John's only seen 12 films, so he's probably not going to see that one.
Yeah, is it on the Empire Top 20 list?
I wouldn't. If you're going to watch 20 films, if you're going to expand your list to 25, John, I wouldn't recommend including this Nazis on the Moon as one.
Nazis on the Moon.
It's a good film.
It's a good film. I tell you what, though, lads. I tell you what. I'm just looking there. There is one. There's a. We've got a live viewer tonight, and it's not Rob, because Rob has told me that he can't watch it live. He's going to watch it tomorrow. So there's somebody other than Rob watching this live tonight. If you are there, please make yourself known. Can you put something on the end of the Google Plus comment? Put a comment if you can see you.
They might want to they might want to.
Anybody.
They might be ashamed of watching this. They might want to remain anonymous.
You've scared them off now.
No, they're still there. Still there. Anyway, okay. Well, we've come to the end of.
It's the government are getting nervous about what we're talking about.
Yeah. We're really going to stuff
like
there.
That Will Smith and I can't remember. That Will Smith film where he has to do everything from inside a cage. Because it could be that. Well, you wouldn't have seen that, John.
Well, not necessarily. I have seen things that I haven't chosen to watch, like on aeroplanes and stuff. And I have seen a Will Smith film that I didn't choose to watch on an aeroplane.
I can't remember.
Can't remember what it was called.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway.
Enemy of the State. That was
No, it's not that one.
Gene Hackman. John Voight.
Okay. Well, it's time to draw a veil over this frivolity. For this time, this is episode 26. Next time we will be back for episode 27. You see how we do that? And it'll be on a Sunday night, next Sunday. And we'll have a full cast of sentient people including Ross, with some informative, insightful
The football
comment.
season is very
Okay, so I hope you enjoy it. I hope that one person who's doing a live viewer, I hope that he or she enjoys it. If you do, please send us an email. You can tweet us. We have our little. Well, Ross doesn't again, but it'll probably be too hard for him to work that out tonight. Richard has his Twitter handle. I've got my Twitter handle. We've got the email, of course, which is wonderofstuff@gmail.com. We all have access to that mailbox, so please give us your feedback. And we also have the blog, which is wonderofstuff.blogspot.com, which we put the show notes on, running orders, etc., etc. So until this next time, from the Wonder of Stuff team, Richard and Ross. A bit late now, Ross, actually, but never mind. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, you.
Bye.
Hey!
Cut it off.
Hey. Oh, grief.